In this video, I'd like to share my thoughts on the American Vintage II Telecaster. I've got this one in the studio right now, which is a 63 vintage Telecaster in green, and I don't have it for very long. So I'd like to share my initial thoughts on it. I'd like to share what I would look for in a Telecaster, especially one that's set up for playing jazz. Hopefully this review will be of use to you if you're considering looking at one of these guitars. So let's get into it. Just before we begin the video, I'd like to tell you about a free beginner jazz guitar course which I have available for anyone that is new to learning jazz guitar. I've put this jazz guitar course together to break down jazz guitar in a coherent and structured way. There are over 25 4K video lessons and a 40-page downloadable PDF to help you get started. Each module comes with downloadable PDFs, chord diagrams, etudes and studies to help you get started learning the wonderful art of jazz. So a brief history about these American vintage reissue guitars. I believe they started in the early 1980s with the classic kind of American vintage series. That series seemed to go on forever, with most notably the 52 reissue was probably the most popular model. They also did a 62 reissue. And probably various others too, and then over the last 10 or 15 years they seem to be changing it all the time, like to the American Original, American Vintage 1, American Vintage 2, with little kind of things that are changing every kind of couple of years or so. So as I said, this one is an American Vintage 2 Telecaster in a lovely kind of green colour. So what are some of the specs on this guitar? Well, this one has a nitro finish, which is one reason why the friend that I picked this up for wanted this guitar, because as you know, I've also got a road worn Telecaster, and a nitro finish, while it might not be essential on many guitars, it is nice to have that kind of thing because the guitar will show some nice kind of signs of wear and use over the years that you play it and enjoy it, whereas obviously a lacquer finish will look the same in 20 years time. Beyond that, some of the things that are maybe worth noting, it's got these kind of clear inlays on the neck. It's kind of faithful to a 63 reissue in that any truss rod adjustments have to be made at the bottom of the neck. You might possibly even have to take the neck off, or at least the pick guard, to get access to it. And other than that, it just kind of is a standard kind of reissue Tele to me, really. The neck's got some lacquer on the back. It's not like a worn down neck like on my road worn. It's got the vintage style tuners, as you can see there, and it's got kind of those classic tuners where it's got the holes at the top and you put the string in the top rather than wrap it round. Vintage bridge and saddle, that kind of big top hat selector switch there, and it's got some pickups which I think are just made for this guitar, called the American Vintage II pickups. I couldn't find any concrete specs on those saying what magnets and stuff the pickups have in. So sorry that I didn't include any details about that. I've had to kind of just use what I could find on those. So, what are my thoughts on this guitar? What do I like about it and what do I not like about it? Well, I've not been playing it for very long, but my initial first impressions are that it's a really beautiful looking guitar. I love this colour of green. I love that it's nitro. That's really nice. A lot of people make a big deal about these kind of clear inlays, which I guess look okay, they look all right. But what I don't like about them, if you can see on the side there, or maybe you can't see, you can barely see them on the side of the guitar neck. So if you was actually using this on a gig where you didn't have very good lighting, I mean, I suppose you could see them, but for me, they'd be a little bit harder to see. I think I would much prefer the classic dots to see where the markers are. Danny Gatton famously put those yo-yo markers on his signature Tele so that you could see in dimly lit situations. So I don't really see the appeal of those clear dot inlays. I'm not really a big fan of them. There's a couple of other things which I've noted about this guitar which you really might want to consider if you're looking at this specific model. Things that I'm not particularly fond of and I feel like I would make you aware of if you're picky like me. Now, the thing about the things that I'm going to mention are really kind of relating to the fact that this guitar retailed new for £2,000 British. There's a receipt in the case from the original owner saying that he bought this for £2,000, which is like, you know, $2,300 at the time of recording this. So, you know, I would be looking for quite a lot in a Fender that costs that much. And there's a few things about this which I'm not so sure about. Now, it could be this specific Telecaster. Perhaps you've got an American Vintage reissue which doesn't have these things. But for me, these are kind of big things for a £2,000 guitar. So one thing is the string alignment of the first string it sounds okay, but it's very easy to flick this string off the fretboard there and cut the note short. As you can see, I'm barely moving my finger and it's already pulling the string off the neck. So the string alignment with the bridge seems a little bit sloppy. I would expect that on a £2,000 guitar that would be kind of sorted out. And I know that this kind of issue happens more on older guitars and perhaps it can be fixed, but from my experience of dealing with that, because I've had a couple of guitars in the past which have had this issue, I've taken them to a luthier friend of mine, it's always hard to resolve that issue. So I'm not so sure about that. And that just seems like quality control to me. Maybe it could be the nut, it could be the alignment of the holes going to the neck. There's something off about that which I don't like. And generally speaking, I'm not sure what strings this guitar has on it. It could be 9s or 10s, but that top string to me on a Telecaster, it does sound very thin as I play notes on that. It sounds okay in the middle as I play a scale and listen to the sound of the tone of the instrument. The middle notes are nice, there's a lot of clarity and depth, so that's a nice sound, but that top string sounds very thin to me. And like I said, the alignment seems off because it can come off the fretboard very easily. Another thing that I'm not ecstatic about with this guitar is the Rosewood seems a little bit light. Now, again, this is a first world problem, and anybody that has watched my videos before knows that I can be kind of really picky about having a good Rosewood board. Now, as you're seeing this now, it's kind of under the worst condition you're going to see it because I've got a bright studio light shining on me and on the guitar, and you can see there that Rosewood board just looks a little bit light and a little bit dry. You know, you could put lots of lemon oil and you could darken it and all that, and that could fix it, but I had a Telecaster which had a light board, and no matter how much lemon oil or what I put on it or what Tex or luthiers put on it, they could never get that Rosewood looking dark. And that's just a little bit kind of frustrating because, you know, my Japanese Stratocaster, which costs far less than this guitar, has a beautiful dark Rosewood board, and I've had Japanese Teles which have had dark Rosewood boards. So yeah, I'm not kind of convinced about that really, especially on a £2,000 guitar. The playability is great. Generally speaking, it's got a really nice neck on it, super comfortable. I think it's some kind of C shape and it's not too bulky, so everything feels nice and accessible to play. The fretboard edges are okay, that they're all 2 degree, but that they could be done. They're not kind of custom shop level, but certainly no areas of concern there. Another thing that just feels a little bit strange to me is obviously a guitar like this is kind of designed to be a vintage spec Telecaster, but it feels so new to play. It feels like it needs to be played so much for it to kind of play how it looks, if that makes any kind of sense. So I think I used to be kind of a little bit more against relics despite having one. I used to kind of question why you'd want a guitar that's played in, but for me this guitar feels very stiff. I mean, it was literally bought brand new 6 months ago, but it just feels like it needs to open up and breathe a little bit. It sounds a little bit bright. Maybe the frets need playing down a little bit, and you know, maybe we could put some fatter strings on and that might help as well. But certainly I would just think that maybe if you're getting a guitar that looks old, you want it to feel a little bit more broken in and not just like an American standard Telecaster. Be curious to know what you think about that. Other than that, the tone sounds and works really good, and you can get a nice sweet jazz tone from this guitar. You know, back in the turn off about halfway, it can sound nice and mellow. Very crisp and articulate in the middle of the guitar, which is why I like Telecasters, because they sound so good when you're using them live. But that top string I'm not so in love with. But the rest sound good, and these pickups do sound good, and the middle pickup sounds great as well. It's a really kind of good sound. I don't know, like I said, I don't know the exact specs of these pickups. But they've got a nice bluesy sound. But most of the time as a jazz player, I'm always here. So those are my initial thoughts on the American Vintage II. Like I said, I think that a lot of Fenders differ from model to model, and if you can get your hands on one first and try it, that really is a good idea, because, you know, if I were paying retail full price for a guitar like this, and some of the things that I've said that I don't like the first string, the lighter rosewood, all that kind of thing, I would be a little bit disappointed. So those are my initial impressions anyway. I'd love to know what you think. Share your thoughts in the comment section below, and thank you for watching this video.